Thank you, Vice President. We welcome the Uruguayan delegation. We appreciate the presentation of the first National Human Rights Plan covering the period 2023-2027, and we commend Uruguay on the creation of the National Gender Policy Directorate as a unit of the Ministry of the Interior. In a constructive and respectful spirit, Mexico would like to make the following recommendations. 1. Ratify ILO Convention 169 on indigenous and tribal peoples, as well as adopt measures to achieve the recognition and preservation of the culture of indigenous peoples. 2. Establish a procedure for the acquisition of Uruguayan nationality via naturalization, which needs to include safeguards to protect against statelessness. 3. Guarantee safe, legal and effective access by women and girls on an equal footing and irrespective of migration status to voluntary termination of pregnancy across the country. We wish Uruguay every success in this UPR cycle. Thank you very much, Vice President.
Monsieur le Vice-Président.
Thank you, Vice President. Switzerland welcomes the Uruguayan delegation. Swiss would make the following 3 recommendations to Uruguay. 1. Take immediate tangible steps, including through a strategic plan, to reduce prison overcrowding, improve detention conditions and guarantee access to physical and mental health care services and to rehabilitation and reintegration programs, particularly for women and minors. 2. Allocate necessary financial human resources to guarantee effective implementation of Law 19580 on GBV, including provision of counselling services and assistance, shelter to victims, guarantee access to justice, in-depth prosecutions into acts based on gender-based violence, including against LGBTQIA+ persons. 3. Give to foreigners who acquire Uruguayan citizenship through naturalization the same rights as other citizens to ensure enjoyment of human rights without discrimination and to prevent statelessness. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President. We congratulate Uruguay on the ratification of the Escazú Agreement. And we also congratulate Uruguay for the drafting and rollout of their first National Human Rights Plan. We hail the promulgation of affirmative action laws on behalf of Afro-descendant persons and trans persons. Brazil makes the following recommendations to Uruguay. 1. Ramp up efforts to prevent, combat and eradicate all forms of violence against women and girls, including domestic and sexual violence. We also recommend that Uruguay strengthen the role of the Observatory on Gender-Based Violence targeting women. Second recommendation, that Uruguay consider revising its legal provisions on legal citizenship to ensure that they are fully in line with international standards on the right to nationality and reduction of statelessness. Picking up on a recommendation from the previous cycle, Brazil urges Uruguay to fully implement its law on mental health. We also urge Uruguay to ratify ILO Convention 169. Thank you very much.
I thank distinguished delegates of Brazil, and I would like to invite distinguished delegate of Chile. You have the floor.
Gracias, Vice-Presidente.
Thank you, Vice President. We thank the delegation of Uruguay for the presentation of the national report. My country, Chile, welcomes the progress that has been made in environmental affairs, pointing in particular to the creation of the Ministry of the Environment and the ratification of the Escazú Agreement. In order to encourage further headway in respect and promotion for human rights, my country would like to make the following recommendations in a respectful spirit. Consider ratification of ILO Convention 169. 2. Make headway in the drafting and application of measures to promote greater participation of women in the public life of the country. 3. Ramp up efforts to prevent, combat and eradicate all forms of violence against women, children and adolescents, as well as to prevent, combat and eradicate all forms of violence against the LGBTQI+ population, strengthening access to justice and effective reparation measures for victims. 4. Align the administrative criteria followed to differentiate between legal Uruguayan citizenship and Uruguayan nationality, designing policies that facilitate and guarantee the rights of refugees, stateless persons and asylum seekers. We wish Uruguay every success in this UPR cycle. Thank you very much.
I thank
Mr. Vice President.
Gracias, Vice-Presidente.
Thank you, Vice President. Costa Rica thanks Uruguay for the presentation of its report and congratulates Uruguay for the development of a digital violence monitoring tool focused on digital violence against women and social networks. We make the following recommendations. Adopt an equality law which would guarantee the full participation of women on an equal footing in elected posts and in political representation. 2. Design a comprehensive policy to provide humanitarian assistance and to facilitate access by refugee, stateless and asylum seekers persons to their rights, allocating the appropriate staffing levels and budget to facilitate that endeavour. 3. Increase the number of specialised prosecutors in the crimes of sexual violence, domestic violence and gender-based violence in the interior of the country and strengthen the existing such bodies in Montevideo. 4. Apply the National Afro-Descendant Strategy 2030 and its the National Plan Against Discrimination, thus ensuring the full and effective participation of Afro-Descendant persons and Indigenous persons in the life of the country, allocating sufficient resources for the implementation of said strategies. Thank you very much.
I think this
and at the various levels of government. Following up on, with regard to questions and recommendations received on citizenship and nationality, I would say that Uruguay has a sustained commitment to protecting fundamental rights and freedoms of all the country's residents. The needs to adapt legal frameworks to specific situations takes nothing away from the justice system, and the reform process and implementation within a right of law does require time and dialogue to build the same. There are channels of communication established with civil society and commitments to make progress to close existing gaps between enforcement of legislation and international obligations of the country when it comes to statelessness, as we stated within the Inter-American Human Rights Commission. Currently, we are in a stage of evaluating and preparing actions, normative, tangible action to provide solutions to disruptions to residents in Uruguay. Debates continue on other substantive elements on which it's necessary to continue the national debate. I give the floor now